What if the people you loved the most never truly loved you back? The text arrived late at night, cold and distant. Hey sweetie, just a heads up, Christmas will be simple this year. Money's tight, so no need to come home. Something felt off. Her family never splurged, but they never cancelled Christmas either. Was she overthinking? Or was there something they weren't telling her? She hesitated, then typed. Of course. I understand. But she didn't. And soon, she would wish she had never found out the truth. Stay. Some betrayals cut deeper than blood. Snowflakes drifted past the dormitory window, catching the glow of the streetlights below. Portland was alive with the warmth of Christmas, carolers on street corners, couples huddled together, the scent of cinnamon and pine filling every cafe. Inside her tiny room, Ivy Quinn folded a sweater into her suitcase, a soft smile on her lips. She was finally going home. It had been months since she last saw her parents. Between juggling classes and pulling endless shifts at the local cafe, she barely had time to breathe, let alone visit. But Christmas was different. Christmas meant family, laughter, a warm embrace from her mother, and the comforting presence of her father by the fireplace. Ivy sighed, rubbing her cold fingers together. One more year, she told herself. Just one more year of balancing work and school, of stretching every dollar, of standing in Victoria's shadow. Then she would graduate. Then things would change. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting a reminder from her manager, or maybe a message from Knox, her best friend. Instead, her screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in weeks. Mom. Her chest warmed with anticipation. Maybe it was an early Christmas greeting. Maybe they missed her just as much as she missed them. She tapped the screen. Hey sweetie, just a heads up, Christmas will be simple this year. Money's tight, so no need to come home. Ivy blinked. The words felt wrong. Cold. Detached. No need to come home. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Money's tight. Her family had never been wealthy, but they had never been reckless either. They never threw extravagant parties, or splurged on unnecessary things. If they were struggling, why hadn't they mentioned it before? Her heart pounded a little harder. She stared at the message, willing it to make sense. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe it was just bad timing. Still, the uneasy feeling gnawed at her. Finally, she forced her fingers to move, typing out the only response she could manage. Of course. I understand. She hit send. Then she sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for something. An explanation. A follow-up message. Anything. But her phone remained silent. Outside, the city glowed with the warmth of Christmas. But inside her chest, something cold had begun to settle. And for the first time in years, Ivy wondered if she really had a place to come home to at all. Ivy had never minded working hard. In the days leading up to Christmas, she poured herself into extra shifts at the cafe, scrubbing tables, refilling coffee cups, and smiling at impatient customers. Portland's winter air was sharp against her skin every time she stepped outside, but she didn't care. Every aching muscle, every late-night closing shift, it would all be worth it. Because this year, even if her parents weren't celebrating, she would still surprise them with a gift. Maybe a nice wool scarf for Dad. And a beautiful candle set for Mom, she mused while counting her tips one evening. It wouldn't be much, but it was something. A small token to show them she cared. They'll be happy, she told herself. They have to be. 2 days after Christmas, Ivy finally allowed herself to slow down. She curled up in bed, exhaustion pressing into her limbs, scrolling mindlessly through social media. People were still posting about their holiday celebrations, cozy family dinners, twinkling lights, piles of perfectly wrapped gifts. Then, she saw it. Victoria Quinn, best Christmas ever. Ivy frowned. Her thumb hovered over the post before she tapped it open. The first image hit her like a slap. A massive Christmas tree, its branches heavy with golden ornaments, glowing under the soft light of the living room she knew too well. Her family's living room. The room she had grown up in. She swallowed hard and swiped to the next photo. Wrapped presents stacked high, their ribbons shining. Luxurious designer bags with familiar logos. Boxes of expensive electronics. And then, her nieces, grinning ear to ear, tearing into the gifts. New shoes. A tablet. Jewelry. Ivy's breath hitched. Her fingers tightened around the phone as a wave of nausea crept up her throat. They had lied. While she had been breaking her back, working late into the night to save up for a small gift, her parents had thrown an extravagant Christmas for Victoria and her family. Money's tight. The words from her mother's text echoed in her mind, now sounding like a cruel joke. Her vision blurred. She wasn't angry, at least, not yet. No, the first thing she felt was something much worse. She felt small. Unwanted. Like she didn't belong. And for the first time, she let herself wonder if she ever truly had. Ivy stared at the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. She read the text from her mother again. Money's tight, so no need to come home. The words had seemed indifferent before. Now, they were something else entirely. A dismissal. A lie. Her parents hadn't forgotten about Christmas. They hadn't cancelled it because of money. They had simply chosen to spend it with Victoria. Her fingers trembled as she switched to Victoria's post again. The Christmas tree. The gifts. The smiles. And her name, completely absent from it all. She had spent years telling herself it didn't matter. That the favoritism, the cold shoulders, the way Victoria always came first, none of it defined her worth. But this time, it was too much. Ivy clenched her jaw. She wasn't going to beg for their love. Not anymore. With swift, decisive movements, she opened her contacts and blocked her mother. Then her father. Then Victoria. No more excuses. No more pain. They had made their choice. And now, she was making hers. The silence lasted for days. No calls. No texts. Nothing. Then, on the fourth day, a message popped up from an unknown number. Victoria, you blocked Mom and Dad. What the hell is wrong with you? Ivy let out a bitter laugh. No apology. No explanation. Just outrage. She had cut them off, and their only response was to be offended. She locked her phone without replying. That night, Knox Wilder showed up at her dorm, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. All right, spill. What's going on? He asked, sitting across from her. Ivy hesitated, then told him everything. The text. The Christmas party. The realization that she had never truly been wanted. Knox listened, his expression unreadable. Then, he set his cup down and exhaled. Abby, you've spent your whole life trying to make them happy. But have they ever tried to make you happy? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. They chose Victoria. And they don't even regret it, he continued. But they did raise you. They did keep you, even if they never treated you fairly. I'm not saying you owe them anything, but maybe you should let go of the anger. Not for them. For you. Ivy swallowed hard. She wasn't ready to forgive. But maybe, just maybe, she was ready to move on. The next morning, she unblocked her parents. She didn't text them. She didn't expect anything from them. But she did buy them a simple gift, a framed photo of their family from years ago, back when she still believed in home. And when she wrapped it, she realized something. She wasn't doing it for them. She was doing it for herself. Something had always felt off. For as long as Ivy could remember, she had sensed it, that quiet, unspoken distance between her and her parents. The way they looked at her, the way they always seemed to keep her at arm's length. As a child, she thought maybe she just wasn't enough. Not good enough, not obedient enough, not lovable enough. But now, standing in the dim light of her childhood bedroom, surrounded by old memories and dust-covered boxes, she wondered if the truth had been there all along. She hadn't planned to dig. She was only here to grab a few things, to close this chapter for good. But when she opened the closet, an old, battered storage box caught her eye. It was shoved to the back, hidden beneath stacks of forgotten clothes. Something about it felt important. Heart-pounding, she pulled it out and flipped open the lid. Inside was a mess of papers, old receipts, medical forms, scattered photographs. She rifled through them absent-mindedly, until her fingers stopped on something strange. A birth certificate. Her breath caught. She lifted it carefully, her eyes scanning the familiar name, Ivy Marie Quinn. But beneath it, where her parents' names should have been, nothing. The space was blank. A chill ran down her spine. Digging deeper, she found an old, yellowed envelope. Her mother's name was scrawled across the front in faded ink. And inside, a letter. Her hands shook as she unfolded it, the paper fragile with age. Margaret, it read. Thank you for taking her. I couldn't keep her, but I pray she has a better life with you. Please love her as your own. The room tilted. The words blurred. Her lungs tightened as the truth crashed over her like a tidal wave. She wasn't their daughter. She never had been. She didn't know how long she sat there, staring at the letter in her lap. Minutes. Hours. A lifetime. The favoritism. The neglect. The way they had always treated Victoria, as if she were made of gold while Ivy was just there. It had never been about her being lesser. It had been about her never belonging in the first place. A hollow, broken laugh escaped her lips. She should have felt devastated. But instead, relief. For the first time in her life, she understood. She wasn't unwanted because she wasn't good enough. She was unwanted because she was never theirs. And suddenly, she didn't have to chase their love anymore. That night, Ivy called Knox. She barely managed to whisper the words before her voice cracked. I'm not their daughter, Knox. I never was. There was silence on the other end. Then, his voice, calm, steady, grounding. Abby. Maybe that's a good thing. She frowned. How? Because now, you don't have to keep trying to be someone they'll love. You get to be yourself. And maybe that's enough. She closed her eyes. For the first time, she thought, maybe it was. Maybe, for the first time in her life, she was free. For the first time in days, Ivy felt light. The weight of years, of feeling unwanted, of chasing love that was never hers to have, had lifted. She was no longer shackled to a family that only saw her as an obligation. And yet, even with this newfound clarity, a quiet loneliness remained. She had walked away. But where did she belong now? The message came unexpectedly. Grace Quinn, Ivy, sweetheart. I heard you were in town. Would you like to come over for dinner? Ivy hesitated. Grace, her father's younger sister, had always been a kind presence. She lived in a quiet suburb, just outside Portland, far from the cold, perfect world of Thomas and Margaret Quinn. They had never been close, not because Grace didn't try, but because Ivy had always been too busy trying to fit into a family that didn't want her. Now, she had nothing to lose. I'd love to, she replied. Stepping into Grace's home was like stepping into a different world. The air smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread. Laughter echoed from the dining room, where Grace's husband and kids were setting the table. The house was cozy, lived in, filled with warmth and love that Ivy had never known growing up. "Come in, sweetheart," Grace greeted, pulling her into a tight hug. The simple gesture nearly undid her. They ate. They talked. Grace asked about school, about work, about her life, really asked, as if she genuinely cared about the answers. No veiled judgment. No cold indifference. Just warmth. For the first time, Ivy felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. She felt welcome. She felt wanted. A few days later, another message arrived. Not from Grace. From Margaret. Margaret Quinn, "We are family, Ivy. Family always comes back together." No apology. No acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. Just an expectation that Ivy would fall in line, as she always had. She stared at the message, waiting for the familiar ache to creep in. It never came. Instead, she exhaled slowly and typed a single response. Yes. Not a plea for love. Not a promise to return. Just two simple words, polite and distant, like the final period at the end of a sentence. Then, she set down her phone. And she let them go. The past no longer haunted her. For weeks, Ivy had waited for the bitterness to return, for the ache of abandonment to creep back in. But it never did. Instead, there was only peace. A quiet kind of freedom. She had spent years trying to prove herself to people who had never truly seen her. Now, she didn't need their approval. She had found something better. At Grace's house, she had learned what family really meant. It wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about warmth. About being wanted. And in Knox, she had found something just as precious. Someone who had always been there, even when she was too lost to see it. The past was behind her. And the future. It was hers to create. One evening, as they walked along the riverfront, Knox turned to her with a knowing look. "So," he asked, "any regrets?" Ivy looked out at the water, the city lights reflecting in the gentle waves. For the first time in a long time, she felt whole. She smiled. "No. Because I finally found my real family." Knox grinned, nudging her shoulder. "Good. Now promise me something." "What?" she laughed. "You have to live well, Abby. Be happy. Really happy." She inhaled deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs. "I will," she said. And this time, she meant it. Ivy had once believed that family was something she had to earn. That love was conditional, something to be chased. But she had been wrong. Family wasn't about blood. It wasn't about obligation. It was about love freely given. About the people who stayed, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And so, she let go. Of the past. Of the pain. Of the idea that she needed to be chosen in order to be worthy. She chose herself. And in doing so, she found happiness. She found freedom. And, most importantly, she found her real family. Because sometimes, walking away from what was never truly ours is the only way to find where we truly belong.